Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about a Biden landslide scenario for the 2020 presidential election again. I have not talked about this in quite a while, so I just wanted to come back to this. And one of the main reasons is that Biden has really been cementing his lead nationwide. He was leading by around 9 to 10% a couple of months ago in around June to July at the height of the Black Lives Matter protests all across the nation. And it was really that gave him the push in the polls that he needed. He was leading by around 5% previously, but now he's leading consistently by over 7 to 8% over President Trump in the national polling. So I think that because of this, because of how stable his lead has been compared to Hillary Clinton's in 2016, this landslide scenario is becoming more and more likely. It's less likely that we are not going to know who's going to win. I think it's more likely that we are going to be able to predict more states just because of how linear Biden's lead has been throughout this campaign. So I'm just going to first fill in the safe Biden states as always. States like Colorado, New Mexico would become safe in this scenario. I think he's definitely going to win by over 7-8% nationwide if he were to win with a landslide. So Colorado, New Mexico definitely would move into the safe Democratic column. I think that if he was not to win a landslide, if he were to win around 330 electoral votes, I would expect a likely margin in both of these states. I would expect around a 13 to 14% margin for Joe Biden in the states of Colorado and New Mexico. And so if you don't know how to do my classification, safe margin is the solid 15% or over for either candidate. The likely margin is 7 to 15%. After that, the lean margin is 2 to 7%, and less than 2% is a tilt margin, which is the lightest color, and you can also find this in my description below. And then states like New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Washington, D.C., the state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire, I think, would be safe for the Democrats if he were to win with a landslide, just because he is pulling ahead by around 12% in the state of New Hampshire. So I think that with a landslide scenario like this, I think he's definitely going to be able to cross the 15% mark in New Hampshire. Maine's at-large and Maine's 1st district vote, I also expect to cross over the 15% mark like New Hampshire. I think they are going to vote very similarly. And then the state of Illinois would be a safe state as well as the state of Virginia. These two states, pretty solidly Democratic states, as well as the state of Hawaii, very solid for Joe Biden. I think that these are going to be his safe states, along with the state of Minnesota, Hillary Clinton did only carry the state by 1.5%, but Joe Biden is leading in the state in the polls by around 12-13%. So like Colorado and New Mexico, I think definitely Minnesota is going to cross over the 15% mark for Joe Biden on election night. So basically, this puts Joe Biden at 226 electoral votes. The only state that he's not going to win with a solid margin that Hillary Clinton won in 2016 is Nevada. I think Nevada is going to be a likely state, which I'll categorize soon. But for Donald Trump and Mike Pence, I'm just going to categorize some of these safe Republican states first. So states like Montana, Utah, I do not categorize them as solid typically, and I don't think they are going to be in this scenario either. I think Nebraska is still going to be solid, even though the 2nd district, I think, is going to be very contentious. Kansas, I think, is going to be a likely state. Oklahoma, a solid state. Missouri, I actually think is going to be a lean state. Barack Obama was very close to carrying this in 2008. The lead has increased quite a bit, but I think that Missouri definitely will be able to rebound a little bit for the Democrats. And then Arkansas, a lead margin as well. I think Arkansas is going to move very much to the left in a Biden landslide scenario. The state of Louisiana, I think it's going to be a likely margin, as well as Mississippi and Alabama. All of the Deep South is not going to be solidly red anymore in this scenario. The state of Montana, I think, is going to be a lean state. He's leaning by around 8-9%, but if Biden would really have a landslide victory, I think it's going to be a lean margin for Biden in Montana, definitely. And then the state of Utah, I think it's going to be a likely margin, a little bit more than Montana, around 7-8%, I think is most likely for Joe Biden in the state of Utah. And then I'm just actually going to talk about the Rust Belt. I think I'm just going to talk about the Rust Belt as a whole and then talk about the Southeast. So looking at the Rust Belt here, Michigan is going to be a likely state, Pennsylvania a likely state, and Wisconsin a likely state. I think that if Biden were to really truly win with a landslide, he could win by around 8-9%, maybe even 10% in states like Michigan in the Rust Belt. I think that these 3 states, he is definitely going to flip these states back. Hillary Clinton lost these states by less than 1% in 2016, cost her the election, but I think Joe Biden, being a much more popular candidate and in his landslide scenario, will definitely, I can promise you, if he's going to win over 350 electoral votes, he's going to win all of these states with likely margins. And then the state of Ohio, I think Ohio is going to be a tilt margin for Joe Biden, even if he's going to win with a landslide. I think Ohio, very close state. I can honestly see it going 50-50 for Trump and Biden right now, but I think Ohio does lean a little bit towards Joe Biden at the moment. In his landslide scenario, I don't think it's going to move too much more to the left, but definitely a lean margin and 18 electoral votes for Joe Biden. Iowa also a lean state. If he were to really win with a landslide, definitely Iowa I think is going to flip. It may have gone to Trump by over 9% in 2016, but remember it went to Barack Obama both times in 2008 and 2012. Indiana, I think it's going to be a lean state. I think it's still going to go to Donald Trump. This is Mike Pence's home state. I don't think it's going to be like 2008 when Barack Obama carried it for the Democrats, but Indiana, I think, is pretty solidly for the Republicans right now, and I think it's going to vote right of most of the Rust Belt. And looking at this, basically all of the Rust Belt has basically voted for the Democrats, with the exception of the state of Indiana. And the state of West Virginia, definitely a solid Republican state. Kentucky, I think, is going to be a lean state, just a little bit closer. Tennessee, a solid Republican state. And then state of South Carolina, I think it's actually going to be a lean margin as well, just because I think it's going to vote similarly to states like Indiana and Missouri. South Carolina is still pretty conservative. It is definitely going to go to President Trump. However, it has been moving a little bit more and more to the left, similarly to the trends of the Bible Belt and the Southeast region especially. I think South Carolina is going to become a likely state for Donald Trump, and even if he were not to win with a landslide, even if Biden were to win with around, an average margin victory on 330 electoral votes right now, South Carolina, I think, is still at best going to be a likely state for President Trump. And then looking at the rest of this map, Alaska, I think, is going to be actually a lean state if he were to really win with a landslide, just because Alaska, it's not too strong for Trump. It's strong for the Republicans, but not too strong for Trump. He won the state by 9% in 2016, not even crossing the 10% margin. But I think that Alaska, it has moved a little bit more to the left since 2016. But I think Alaska definitely will go to the Republicans, but a 6-7% margin of victory is more likely. I think Trump is going to underperform by around 3% there in 2020. And then I just want to talk about the congressional districts. I think the 2nd district of Nebraska is going to be a tilt margin. Trump does actually lead here. He won in 2016. But I think that, of course, if Biden were to win by such a large margin, definitely the 2nd district of Nebraska would go to Biden. And the 2nd district of Maine, I think it will actually be a likely margin if he were to win with a landslide, just because he is expected to carry this state right now. And I think that if he were to win by, an even larger margin, I think it's going to be a likely district for Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential election. And then I want to talk about the Sun Belt, the remaining Sun Belt states, Nevada, Arizona, and Texas. First with Nevada, definitely a likely state for Joe Biden. This was a state that Donald Trump was expected to win, but Hillary Clinton won this state by 2.4%, wildly outperforming the polls. But, electoral votes really did not help her in the end. But I think that Biden definitely, with a likely margin, he leads by around 8% here. I think he will definitely overperform that in his landslide scenario. And then Arizona, I think, is going to be a lean state just because it's going to flip for the first time in decades. The last time a Democrat carried the state of Arizona was all the way back in 1996 when Bill Clinton carried the state of Arizona and its 11 electoral votes. But I think that in 2020, it's definitely going to flip for the Democrats. They are expected to win the state. Joe Biden is expected to carry the state of Arizona. And I think that it's going to be a lean margin even if he does, just because of, it still has been a conservative state. But I think that, in its first time flipping, I really do not see it being a likely state for Joe Biden, no matter how large of a margin he wins by. And then the state of Texas, I had a little bit of trouble categorizing the state, but honestly, if he were to win by a landslide, Texas is going to go to Joe Biden. No question about it. It's not going to go to Donald Trump if Biden wins by 10% nationwide or something like that, because Texas has actually been polling in favor of Joe Biden for quite a while during this election campaign. That is absolutely unprecedented. No Democrat has carried the state of Texas since 1976 when Jimmy Carter carried the state. So Texas is not going to go to Joe Biden on a normal map. But if you want to win by a landslide, if you want to win states like Iowa and Ohio, definitely Texas is going to go to Joe Biden. Texas is now more to the left than states like Iowa, a state that voted for Barack Obama in 2012, or Ohio, a state that voted for Barack Obama in 2012. So I think that this is very worrying for Donald Trump's campaign, because Joe Biden doesn't even need Texas. He hasn't really been putting too much effort into the state, and he's leading in the state. He has been. So that is a very good sign for the Biden campaign. And then looking at the Southeast, I think that the Southeast is really going to be the new Democratic area. Honestly, these voters were all pushed away by LBJ's civil rights reform in the 60s. These are all Democratic states before then, but, because of, him signing the Civil Rights Act of 1964, because of all of that, these states all moved to the right quite a bit after that. But now we see that these states are all moving more and more to the left. And, states like in the Rust Belt, they are moving to the right. 2020, I think it's going to be an exception. But most of the Rust Belt is moving to the right. And most of the Bible Belt and the Sun Belt, especially states like Texas and Arizona, are moving more and more to the left. And so states like North Carolina, I think it's going to be a lean state for Biden with a landslide. I think he's going to carry the state even if he doesn't, but I think his margin is definitely going to increase in this scenario. And then the state of Georgia, I think it's going to be a tilt margin similar to Texas and Iowa. I think that these 4 states are all going to go very narrowly for Joe Biden in his landslide scenario on election night. And then the state of Florida, I think it's going to be a lean margin. He does have a 6-7% polling lead in the state of Florida. If this was a state like Nevada, I would give it to Joe Biden with a likely margin like I did. But Florida's always very close. I think it's going to be a lean margin, 5-6%, even wins by a landslide. Florida is always very close, and I think it will stay that way in 2020. And so this is my completed Biden landslide 2020 map. If you were to win by a landslide, I expect Biden to win 413 electoral votes to Donald Trump with 125, and this would mean that Joe Biden would win the largest electoral vote share of any Democrat since LBJ in 1968. And so this would be very good for Joe Biden, definitely would be able to help his term start out very strong. And I think that if this were to occur, the Democrats would almost definitely sweep the Senate and the House. And so, yeah, this is my new updated 2020 Biden landslide map. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. We are very close to hitting 400 subscribers. I'd like to thank you guys all for 350. And so if you enjoyed it, please subscribe. It would really help me a lot. Like this video, comment your thoughts below, as well as any video suggestions you'd like to see in the future. And I will see you in the next video.